p.m. Tuesday, April 6th. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. We will ask folks to stand if they are willing and able for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation will be delivered by Pastor Todd Carter of Pathways Church, who I believe is here. Please.
Let's pray together this morning. Well, Father in heaven, we just thank you so much for the place and the people of Wichita. God, what a great place that you've given us to live, to work, to raise our families. God, we thank you as we come together this morning just for the health and the relief that you've given our community from the virus. God, we know that every good thing that we have comes from you. God, I pray as we come together today, God, I pray for our mayor. God, I pray for our city commissioners. God, the weight of leadership is real. And God, I pray that you just would lighten their load today. God, I pray that you'd give them wisdom. God, I pray you give them discernment as they discuss the matters at hand. And God, as we come together as well today, I pray for our first responders. God, I just thank you so much for all they do to serve our city. God, thank you so much for their work, for the sacrifices they make every day. God, keep them safe. Watch over them. God, thank you for their model of sacrificial service as well. God, we just love you. We just give you our day, and I just pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll move into approval of the minutes from the regular meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Is there any discussion on the minutes? If there is no discussion on the minutes, I'll make a motion to pass the minutes as presented.
Second.
Motion is made and then seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. The result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Proclamations, Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month. Is there anyone here who will be receiving this on behalf of? See none, so we'll make sure to reach out to the person receiving this week. Proclamation of the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas children are locally grown and have the right to be safe and to be provided an opportunity to thrive, learn, and grow. Whereas hope and commitment are powerful fertilizers that strengthen and support the Kansas families, thus preventing the far-reaching effects of maltreatment, providing the opportunities for children to develop healthy, trusting family bonds. And whereas grow together because prevention happens in partnership. And whereas by growing a better tomorrow for all children, together we can ensure that Kansas children will grow to their full potential as the next generation of leaders, helping to secure the future of the state and nation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Madam Clerk.
Proclamations, Distracted Driving Awareness Month.
Is there anyone to receive this proclamation live today? See none. With that, I will read. Proclamation of the City of Wichita, Kansas, founded in 1870. Whereas distracted driving can result in injuries and death to motorists, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And whereas distracted driving occurs when the driver diverts their attention away from the task of driving to focus on another activity, such as distractions endanger drivers, passengers, and bystanders' safety. And whereas distracted drivers is a serious, life-threatening practice and is preventable. And whereas, in order to reduce the number of crashes as well as improve driver safety, Wichita motorists should dedicate themselves to adopting and maintaining safe behavior while behind the wheel. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Brandon Whipple, Mayor of the City of Wichita, Kansas, along with the Wichita City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 as Distracted Driving Awareness Month in the City of Wichita and encourage citizens to increase their awareness of the dangers of distracted driving and protect each other on the road through distraction-free driving behavior. Madam Clerk.
Public agenda, Barbara Hurl, Rental Assistance Program and Evictions.
All right, is Barbara Hurl here? Good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much for letting me speak to you guys today. I came here to talk to you about the eviction moratorium and your rental assistance program, the WERAP program that you guys have. You know, for the past year, we've been in a national declared pandemic with everyone suffering losses. And from our income and livelihoods, that includes us landlords also. While the moratorium on evictions has helped thousands of renters avoid evictions, it's deprived us of the ability to conduct our business. As landlords, we don't have the option of working less hours or delaying the repairs to our properties. All that still has to be met. Mortgages, insurance, maintenance, property taxes, we still have to continue to pay those. Many of us are small businesses, and we've used all of our resources and reserves to stay afloat for the last year. Right now, we're facing a staggering rise in number of tenants that are abusing the ban the way it's wrote now. And they just won't pay their rent. It's not that they can't, they just won't. And we can't evict them. And while this is going on, they're destroying our properties and our investment while we wait. We're going to be forced to raise our rent prices of all of our properties to cover the cost of our loss, which is going to make it more difficult for people to find affordable housing. What's going to happen when the moratorium is lifted and all these evictions hit the court system? And the landlords we refuse to rent to people that have been evicted because we've had to suffer through all this too. There's too much confusion with all the different eviction moratoriums. We have the federal, the CDC, the state, the cities. No one knows what one applies to us here. We don't know who can or cannot be evicted and for what reasons they can be evicted. There's not a clear interpretation of what it means or how to fairly enforce it. The clerks will accept the fees, charge the fees to file the evictions, but then the judges won't hear the cases. There needs to be some way for landlords to continue to conduct our business because we can't continue to supply housing without having money coming in too. While your stimulus rental assistance programs has helped, it takes way too long for it to get to the landlords. Last year, we went 9 months before we started receiving any payments from the federal or any of the programs available. And so far, we're 4 months into this year, and we haven't received anything for this year yet either. And there's even more uncertainty with the program because there's no one designated that can answer our questions. I spent 3 weeks calling up to the RERAP offices and finally had to go through the mayor's office just to find out who I could talk to. And then it took me another week to get someone to get on the phone and talk to me, to even answer us basic questions on how is it going to work. And so we need more than what we're getting. You know, we need to be kept informed of what's going on and where to go to find the resources. Just yesterday, I received an email on one of our applications that was filed and sent in on February 22nd. And so it's taken roughly 5.5 weeks for them to get to the very first applications that were put in. And there doesn't seem to be any concise answer as to who's going to qualify for the program. If someone's denied, we're forced, we can't evict them for non-payment of rent. If they're denied the program, where do we go to get the money that they haven't paid us in? what resources, where do we go? And there doesn't seem to be anyone that can give us any answers and tell us where to go and where to find the help. And that's what I'm here to ask today for, where do we go? And I think that's probably about all I wanted to talk to you about this morning.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. Bob, who's facilitating the programs?
Sally Stang can reach out to her,
Yes.
the housing department.
Well, I got a couple other emails with similar issues.
Sure. If you could forward those to me, we'll get responses.
I didn't know it. I'm just curious too. Is there an administration fee, or does the city just covering the administration cost, or how's that working?
If you'd like, I can have Sally give you a brief overview right now.
Okay. That'd be great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good morning.
Welcome and good morning.
So yes, there is an administrative fee. We have 10% of the grant funds that we've received can be used for both admin and housing stability services for clients. Yes, we are still working on applications that were submitted on the day we opened. We received 1,200 applications that day. It is a very daunting process. The rules set out by the Department of Treasury and the verification documents that we're having to collect. And I'll be honest with you, I've been surprised that almost every other case has a strange issue going on. Either other people listed on the lease, ownership issues for the property, not being able to tie who they're claiming to be the landlord to the property. We have been trying, and we deliberately opened our applications early. The idea being we would start funneling money, getting it going out into the community as we built up the program. So we are building the plane while we're flying it at the same time. So far we have 9 staff dedicated to working on, permanent staff that are working on this. We have 6 temporary employees, and we're getting 9 additional temporary employees. We had a meeting a virtual meeting with the Department of Treasury on March 19th. Over 1,000 grantees from across the country were on that meeting. And what we were told at that point was less than 50% of the grantees were even accepting applications yet, and less than 20% were issuing payments. So we understand, we've made some adjustments to our processes and the weekly emails that are going out, but it does take time to process. We've also launched our first criminal investigation related to fraud in this particular program.
Okay, and that was my next question. I want to make sure that the landlords are taken care of, because they are taking care of the maintenance, everything else, taxes, or there's no leeway for that. They still have to pay their property taxes and everything. But is there county, state? What I'm trying to do is there how many payment facility type places are there? What I want to make sure is nobody's collecting from the city, they're collecting from the county, they're collecting from the state. Is that an issue?
It absolutely is, and it's something addressed in our grant agreement that says we have to ensure there's not duplication of benefits. So we've entered into a memorandum of understanding with the state related to their KEP program and now their CARA program. So that's the first thing that happens when we pull names from the waiting list, is they are run against what the state has paid. They're run against what's been paid out through Center of Hope and Salvation Army using ESG funds. That's one of the things that we have to do in order to ensure that we don't have duplication of subsidy.
Thanks.
Sally, I'm just going to ask a quick question. I know that it never feels fast enough when it comes to money, and particularly if past payments are piling up. But can you just tell us, or the other option for running this program is coming through the state. Can you just give us a timeline on where we are versus where the state is?
Sure. So we are working collaboratively with the state. We're trying to ensure that our policies and our procedures are similar, so not to create confusion. Right now, the state CARA program is serving the rest of Kansas. They opened their applications on March 22nd, where we opened ours on February 22nd. And as of last week, they had not issued a single payment yet.
So we're a full month ahead of the state.
We are.
So it's my understanding is the next largest city has rolled into the state program, so we are further ahead than every large city in Kansas. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct.
Thank you. Councilmember Cirillo.
And thank you, Mayor. I think the mayor touched on a little bit of what I was going to ask. Is there any way to estimate when we might be able to start getting payments ready to go and paid out?
We are making payments weekly and have been since March 3rd. And the amounts are increasing as the staffing, as it is increasing.
Okay. I think one of those emails had stated that no payments had been made yet.
That's the state's program.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Which we're a full month in front of, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
Which we're a full month in front of the state program.
Correct.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Sally, I think I sent this to you in the email, but no, I didn't. There are 2, maybe 3 potential property owner landlords that won't give lease agreements, and I know that's a part of the needed documentation. Is there a way we can have a generic lease agreement?
We actually do have alternatives to the written lease agreement, but it takes getting consistent statements from both the landlord and the tenant, and then documentation. So if the client can show us that they've been paying this amount of rent to the client, we can accept that as documentation that that is an existing agreement.
In the event that there is a landlord who refuses to participate in this, but a tenant really wants the help, can they get help, or are they just?
They can. The federal regulations require we have a 3-week and 3 attempt to get the landlord to participate. We can then issue the check to the client, but the client then has to provide us proof they paid the landlord.
Okay, that helps.
We're trying to get the landlords to participate.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions for Director Stang?
Mayor, I'm not sure if Sally mentioned this, but we've processed about $400,000 in payments since the start of the program.
$400,000 in payments going into our Wichita economy before the state has even been able to issue one payment. Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
Not to belittle the state, but thank you so much for everything you do, Sally.
I wouldn't be too proud of the state.
Madam Clerk.
Sybil Strum, bullied into signing a contract.
Welcome and good morning.
Good morning to you all. My name is Sybil Strum. I reside at 326 North Walnut. I do not like being bullied. I don't think anybody does. I was bullied to sign contracts. Like, for example, the construction that got done on my house. I did not know the contractor, and I'm the owner of the house. So I had to go to the Better Business Bureau to get the address of the place. This is not right. Our community should not be doing that to people. I've called Brandon Johnson about it. I informed him about the stuff I've gone through. This is not right. I am now living in a house where I had to put plastic on the windows, and the guy that did my door did it crooked. And then I was also bullied by the housing authority to sign also a contract for a loan that was $10,000. I never got to meet the president of Fidelity Bank downtown. And now Fidelity's trying to make me pay $10,000 more, which the contract states as follows, that I'm only supposed to be paying $10,000. I've already paid like $177, $538, $538, $538 3 times. But they keep saying that that's not enough. This is going on. I am not kidding. I have been threatened by Central. They came on my property a long time ago, and my neighbor was the neighborhood watch guy. He's deceased now, but he asked the guy, what's your name? You know, where do you work? And he told him, I don't have to tell you my name. And I'm tearing down this house, and I'm tearing down that shed. It was a 1910 home. What do you want? It's a bootlegger's home. But y'all gave me a new house, and it's still not as much as I want, you know. You guys got to learn. If you want us to vote for you all and do the things you want us to do, you got to come up to the homeowner. You know, you got to have the housing authority not do it on closed doors. Let's get our contractor that we like. Let's get the bank we want. See, I go to Intrust. My bank is Intrust. My son's is Quantum. And they just would not listen. They shrugged me off. They told me, either you do it our way or you're going to be homeless. I don't like that. I'm sorry. I do not like that. I don't think anybody does. They want to make you homeless. And that's why I come to you all the time. I want to know answers. Why did they said my house was unsafe, okay, but why did neighbor kids come to my house? Their parents would leave them there. I'd have to go locate them. And I'm still trying to find out where my Victorian tub went, where my 2 metal doors went. That Victorian tub would be worth $2,468, but instead it was either thrown away or given away. You can't do that to anybody. You cannot give things away without the permission of the homeowner. That's another thing. They took it upon themselves to make me so mad, so angry, that I couldn't stand it anymore. I've been there for the community, and it seems like the community don't want to be for me. This is going on every day. So I ask you guys, don't let this happen to anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda items 1 through 23.
Remember, I had a chance to review the consent agenda, and if so, the discussion. Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. I don't want to pull it, but I do just want to recognize for consent agenda item 21. This is for the Housing and Community Services Department with the extension of the food box program. I just want to make sure that we give a little shout out again to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas. I had an opportunity to chat with them yesterday and then another opportunity to speak with some more folks there today. They provided the seed money for this program to happen. And then I also want to give really significant accolades to Director Stang and her team. We started this program last March, April, around this time when things were just really kind of starting with the pandemic and a very crazy time. But Sally really stepped up to the plate and took the initiative to make sure that we worked through the process. And I think this is just a fantastic example of a public-private partnership where we got the seed money from a private entity, Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, but have been able to figure out how to extend it within the community. And then just on a final note, I had the opportunity to go and do the city spotlight and meet some of the residents and talk to staff, but also talk to the vendor. It's a local company, a very small business. It's also minority-owned and woman-owned. And because of this, she's been able to bring on additional staff. So just want to give a significant, again, praise to Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas and to our housing department for this program. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, I will make the motion to accept the consent agenda items 1 through 23 as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays. The motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Report of Board of Bids and Contracts dated April 5th, 2021.
Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Hannah Lang, Department of Finance, here to present the April 5th Board of Bid recommendations. First engineering bid we have is Water Distribution System to serve Fox Run Edition. Apex Excavating for groups 1 through 5 for a total of $547,943.30. Paving Laguna to serve Clear Creek 4th Edition. Kansas Paving for $298,953.15. 2021 Sanitary Sewer Rehab Phase A, utility maintenance contractors for $320,226. Stormwater Sewer Westside Athletic Field water main replacement, utility maintenance contractors for groups 1 and 2 for a total of $126,868. Water Distribution System to serve Oasis Edition, Apex Excavating for groups 1 and 2 for a total of $254,074. Asphalt hot and cold mix, defer to April 12th Board of Bids. $58,000 GVWR dump truck, Wichita Kenworth for the base bid with an option 1 deduct, option 3, option 5 for a total of $101,429. Trailer mounted hydraulic submersible pump, Cogent Incorporated base bid with an option 1, a quantity of 2 for a total of $145,713.20. North Industrial Corridor Well Survey, no bids received. Trucks 11-foot stake bed and mini dump, Rustiak Ford for Group 1 base bid with option 1 for $44,494. Don Hatton Ford for Group 2 base bid with options 2 and 3 for a total of $88,402. 5-foot snow plow blades, Winter Equipment Company, $50,720. Salt conveyor with hopper, Kimco USA for $98,051.83. This is our purchasing procurement website, as well as our current open request for proposals. That is the Board of Bids recommendations. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions of staff? See none. If there is no discussion, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to receive and file the report, approve all the contracts, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. Result of 7-0, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Petitions for public improvements.
Welcome, sir.
Morning, Mayor and Council members. Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. There are 4 developments today with new petitions for your consideration. All of these petitions represent 100% of the improvement district and are valid per Kansas statute. Boulevard East Edition, which is east of Oliver, north of Douglas, is for sanitary sewer improvements. Rennick Edition and Rennick Second Edition, which is north of 45th and west of Hoover, has numerous petitions for water, sanitary sewer, drainage, and paving. Angel Fire Edition, Angel Fire Second Edition, which is 47th Street South and West Street, includes a petition for paving improvements. And the last one is a petition for sanitary sewer improvements for Nederlander Second Edition, east of Seneca, north of Douglas. Staff recommends City Council approve the revised and new petitions and budgets, adopt amending resolutions, and authorize necessary signatures. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions of staff? See none. If there's no discussion or questions, then I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the petitions and budgets, adopt the resolutions, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. The result is 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing and approval of a facade improvement project, 400 South Emporia.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. Mark Elder here with the Office of Economic Development. The item before you today is a public hearing on facade improvements for 400 South Emporia. You may recall a few weeks ago the council set this date as the date of the public hearing for consideration. The facade improvement program has been going on for approximately 20 years now. In 2009, the policy was revised to require additional matching investment and additional securities for the city. It includes a grant portion that's 25% of the project, up to $10,000 for a mid-block and up to $30,000 for a corner. If this project is approved today, that would leave $31,000 in the balance of the grant funding. This project is located at 400 South Emporia with the total estimated project cost of $740,000. The improvements do include exterior brick repair, improving the entrance, as well as a new enhanced improvement on Waterman facing the arena, enlarging the windows, and any additional work that's needed to restore the building and meet code requirements. This is an aerial of the location on the southeast corner of Waterman and Emporia. You can see on the north side, it faces directly across from the stadium, or the arena. The existing facade today, this is the west side of the building, and these are the proposed improvements to the northwest corner of the building, including that west side. A few examples of the existing north facade, you can see those small windows as well as the bricks and stains and this additional, walled-in area here that's a patchwork that does not match. The developer will be adding this entrance on the east side of the building there, as well as you can see the enlarged windows. And here's a little easier to see image of that entrance. And you can see they've made some enhancements to make that patchwork in the bricks a little cleaner for the facade. One last image is kind of looking from the arena south at the entrance to the building. This project has an estimated cost of $354,000. That includes a 10% contingency that staff adds to that. This is a maximum assessment, so we approve all those funds up front. It also includes the city administration fee, financing costs, and those financing costs include 1 year's worth of debt service. That's another tool that the city uses, just kind of has security. So if they've paid 14 years of the payment, that 15 years is just paid out of that debt service reserve. And then there's a $30,000 grant, which would set the maximum assessment of $380,000. So with that, special assessments would be spread against the building once the repairs are completed and the developer has been reimbursed. The interest rate is set by the bond sale, so when we go to issue those bonds, that's when we know the actual amount of that rate. And it will be repaid over a 15-year period. Another security for the city is that the owner will pay the construction cost and be reimbursed once that project is complete and the special assessments can be placed upon the property. So following the completion of the facade improvements, the final assessments would be set. So once we know the actual cost of the improvements and we've reimbursed the developer, that's when we go forward with an adjusting ordinance to set the actual amount that will be assessed on there. It will be to not exceed that $300,000. So if it's less than that, we bring back the amending ordinance. With that, I will stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? No questions for staff? We'll open it up to the public for discussion. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this?
Good morning, Mayor Whipple.
Welcome and good morning.
My comments on this project begin as follows. The City of Wichita needs an ethics policy ASAP. Here is a businessman asking for financial help with improvements to his property at 400 South Emporia. His building is in a prime location directly south of Intrust Bank Arena. Bruce Rowley is quoted in the Wichita Business Journal as saying it was important to maintain the industrial and historical features of the building. He was also quoted as saying how great the views are going to be as the structure is elevated 4 feet above the ground. That reminds me of another historic structure, one that also has great views, expansive windows, and amazing views of downtown Wichita, the former public library. I remember this same businessman didn't think much of the historic value of either the former public library or Century 2. So who is to say this building at 400 South Emporia is important because of its historic elements? Or is it important because of campaign contributions? Without an ethics policy guiding your votes today, citizens will never know. There are thousands of people in Wichita who would like financial help fixing up their properties. I heard about 1,200 people today who need rental assistance. I'm sure they could tell you why their building is important to Wichita and historically important. Facade improvements. I didn't even know we had that type of program. Do all businesses in Wichita know they can apply for financial assistance through this program? Without any ethics policy, taxpayers of Wichita, citizens of this city, have no idea why this one businessman and his one property is so special to receive financial assistance from us. Because remember, us is the citizens of Wichita and the taxpayers who fund the city's budget. Why is he getting special assistance in the form of general obligation bonds paid back over 15 years through special assessments in this building? In addition, he is getting a $30,000 grant. Not bad. The practice of creating special assessments is at least a step better than what happened last month when you approved a residential TIF district, Riverside TIF district, to pay for public improvements for a private development to include the sewer lift station, and then gave away public land in the Sim Park area, highlighted here in purple, without a competitive bid or without advertisement in the Wichita Eagle that this land was being traded for land the developers needed for a road into the development. Just quietly swapped out land for developers who wanted a road into their development. An ethics policy is long overdue. Get one passed immediately and quit squabbling over small details like internet web harassment. You can improve upon the policy each year as it is reviewed, so just get one started. Get a basic policy up, get it approved, and get it running. But today, without an ethics policy, you'll again be voting on specially created ordinance, a facade easement for this one particular businessman, and the taxpayer has no idea if you are showing favoritism and voting yes because he bought your vote in some way. The ethics policy needs to also apply to all city boards and the people each of you appoint to serve on those boards. For example, the Wichita Historic Preservation Board, or the district advisory boards, or any volunteer position where you appoint board members. And there needs to be real consequences for violations of the ethics policy, including removal from city council, for city manager, and for any volunteers you appointed to those boards. It needs to be serious. Wichita citizens are fed up with pay to play and business deals favoring only the millionaire developers who spent freely on your campaigns. Campaign reform needs to be the second action you take, but for now, let ethics reform come first. Get an ethics policy approved with consequences. Abstain from voting when you have any question or doubt about conflict of interest. Do you have any conflict of interest today? Do any of you have a conflict of interest when the Riverside TIF district was voted on? Did any of you abstain from voting, or will you abstain from voting today? It's really that simple. Why is 400 South Emporia getting financial assistance from you today? Make sure it's a fair vote, and make sure you abstain if you have a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. Mark, could you maybe come back up? Thank you. Could you maybe just explain for the speaker and for the community, just so there isn't any misunderstanding about our facade improvement program, who is eligible, how they apply, the process for determining? Just kind of give us a 101, if you will. Thank you.
The program is eligible for, any building owners that are within the redevelopment area that's been defined on the for the program. And their first step is to reach out to us with an application. We provide the information online for that. And we don't have a way to really just reach out knowing who's in the process at that time, but I know at least for the downtown area, business owners usually have communication with Wichita Downtown Development, and they will, provide, information to folks that it may be of assistance to. But in general, it's open. It follows the state statute on making those improvements to the facades, and so as long as they have a building that's abutting the right of way that the owner, they don't have, back taxes, anything like that owed, they can apply for that, and, you know, I think the biggest threshold is usually that $50,000 of minimum investment in the facade to make that happen.
So the state and the city have criteria that we're following, correct? Right,
Correct.
so it's not up to individuals or preference or preferential treatment, there's a process that's followed.
It's a process that's followed. We have a policy in place that sets out the guidelines for the approval and review process.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate you saying it's open to anyone in that specific area. But Bob, did we not create a program that was also open outside of this area through the housing department that other businesses could apply for?
Vice Mayor, I believe that we did put money aside with CDBG funds in when you approved this year's annual program, if that's Mark.
Right.
Awesome. So no special treatment there. It's open to anyone who qualifies for that to apply. And although the majority of those remarks were not germane to what we are, I'm glad the previous speaker outlined all of those things about an ethics policy, because that's exactly what the city council is doing. And more importantly, going out right now to the community and engaging. We had a presentation last night at our district advisory board and got some really good feedback from the community, who are our bosses. So that's our process, and we'll be approving an ethics policy next month. So we're on track for that.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you very much. And Bob, it says on our sheet here that we've been doing a facade program since 2001, and I thought we'd done quite a few in Delano several years ago. I mean, I thought we'd have quite a few of them. Do you have any idea how many we've done over the past several years, or Mark, either one?
I'd have to look. We have a report in our annual report that will be out in the next week or two that has that list, but it's a full page worth of properties that have been financed over, you know, that it's basically listed the outstanding improvements, and so there are several that have already been, you know, paid off, but we still have a good number that are out there, but I don't have the exact number now. We can get that to you when we do the report.
Okay. And also, it seems like we're addressing the ethics policy a lot during this issue, and I know Councilmember Johnson just said we will be approving one in May. I don't know how you know the outcome of the vote, because I definitely got a lot of feelings from my dab last night as to the direction of this, so hope we can continue the discussion without thinking we have a policy that we've already approved before we voted on it.
Councilmember Johnson.
Mayor, just to clarify,
Vice Mayor.
we will have the opportunity to vote on this in May. We are getting public feedback now. I am not saying the current policy would be approved. I am saying that the city council will have an opportunity next month to vote on an actual policy.
All right, more discussion from the public on the facade improvement project. More discussion from the bench. If not, I'll go ahead and relinquish the floor to Vice Mayor Johnson for a motion.
Thanks, Mayor. This is a project that has, more potential to continue improving our downtown, and especially the aesthetic. Our downtown has continued to beautify and grow over the years, so I am happy with no conflict of interest to move that we close the public hearing and place the maximum assessment ordinance on first reading.
Motion has been made. Now we'll go ahead and second that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? If none, let's go ahead and open up the rolls. Thank you, clerk. Members cast the votes. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Resolutions authorizing Federal Transit Administration, Section 5339C, no emission bus grant application.
Director Tan, welcome and good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. The Federal Transit Administration has issued a project call for 2021 low and no emission grant application. The total amount of money that is in that grant is $180 million. In 2018, Wichita Transit was awarded similar funds and currently operates 11 battery electric buses in its fixed route service. We currently operate 24 mandated complimentary ADA paratransit service buses. Those are the small cutaways that you see operating around town for the disabled community and also for medically qualified individuals for door-to-door service. We have received in 2018 a grant, 5339 grant, totaling $1.8 million to replace those buses with similar buses. This grant program gives transit agencies the ability to partner with bus manufacturers that meet the federal requirements for competitive procurement. Wichita Transit has established a goal of replacing all fossil-fueled vehicles once they exceed their useful life, and funding is secured with battery electric alternatives that provide reduced operating and maintenance costs, quieter, cleaner, and safer experiences for both the users and non-users of public transportation, and to continue to be the leader in Kansas in those applications. In 2019, those 24 paratransit buses consumed more than 92,000 gallons of gasoline and emitted over 1.8 million pounds of carbon dioxide into the air as they operated those mandated 800,000 miles. Those vehicles are Ford E450 with V10 gas-powered cutaway buses averaging about 8 miles to the gallon and provided 300 trips door-to-door to those persons with disabilities and to medically qualified individuals. State-of-the-art low-floor optimal EV buses will aid in reducing internal costs, energy consumption, harmful emissions, and improve the environmental impacts in both air and noise, as well as providing a convenient, safe experience for both the customer and the operator. That is a picture of the current optimal EV vehicle that you see. It is a low-floor vehicle. I'll go and explain low floor as compared to high floor, which we currently operate now. That is about a 25-year-old design. It was designed when ADA was first implemented. This gives you a view of where electric buses and where sales have been going. As of recently, we all know, based upon conversations and news reports, that the direction is obviously an electric bus adaptation, and the FTA is urging that bus transit agencies replace their diesel buses and gasoline buses with electric. This gives you an overview of the optimal EV low-floor bus and the savings that would be available to transit agencies that adopt those buses. This shows averages. The big difference I would bring to your attention would be the fuel costs. That is standard electric rates. We're very fortunate in Kansas that Evergy has a reduced electricity program. If we charge buses between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m., we have about a 47% less charge per kilowatt hour than if we had done that, or anyone does that during the normal operating day. So we take advantage of that in the fixed route service, and we would do the exact same with this. That adds about another $1,600 per year on fuel cost savings. Totally, between the 24 buses, if we were fortunate enough to capture all of that, we would represent or see about $160,000 in savings just in operating alone. Optimal EV, which is the approved vendor by the FTA. This gives you an idea of the number of customers that they're currently doing, how long they've been in business, and what their goal is of EV bus adaptation. As you look at the side view of this vehicle, you'll notice that it has the low floor configuration, which means that the ramp is just a simple entry point. All passengers enter at the low floor. There's no steps. You'll see in comparing the two, the bottom right picture that you see, that's what we currently have. That's pretty much standard in industry. You see that there's at least 3 steps to enter. It is a very complicated entry point. It's very tight. You have the driver operating position, plus you have a number of steps there. You also see in the back, that is the loading ramp or the loading lift for wheelchairs. So all wheelchair passengers have to enter and exit the bus that way. If you view that as a contraption, that would be the best way to describe that. It has a number of, the driver first of all has to exit the bus and has to grab a control unit and then operate everything completely. You see the doors that are there. There's about 14 moving parts just in that alone, and it takes a long time to deploy that and then to bring the person up, which is, if I was in that situation and I was about 4 feet above the ground, I would be concerned. It is very safe, but it does not give you the confidence that you would have in a low floor entry point. This will give you some idea of the type of capacity and the options that are available. I would only call your attention in this diagram to, if you look at the middle picture, you would see what we would consider our configuration to be. Our buses would have 2 wheelchair places, which our current buses have, and then 12 seat spaces on the level up above for our ambulatory passengers. This gives you an idea of the powertrain. Very similar to the powertrain on Proterra. The propulsion unit is actually a Proterra battery pack, much smaller, but it is the same battery pack. Same principle as our Proterra buses. The engine is, as you see there on the left-hand side, is about the size of a keg of beer. It is able to be located. If you view this picture, you'll see that everything is between the frame rails. This vehicle is also an E450 Ford van. So it is still a United States manufacturer. It is just converted over into an electric vehicle. You'll see where the battery pack sits, and you see the propulsion unit, which is at the rear of the vehicle. There is no transmission. There is no engine. There's battery and electronics that are at the front and the middle, and that is really what propels the bus. Funding for the cost of the no-emission buses is eligible for 85% federal funding and 15% local share. Funding for the associated infrastructure, which are the chargers and transformers, is eligible for 90% federal, 10% local share. Sufficient funds are available in the adopted 2021-2030 capital improvement program required for local match. The anticipated grant application total is $7 million. The $1.6 million I mentioned before, you'd already received to replace them with the gas vehicles. That would be taken into consideration and would be available to us if we were fortunate enough to win the award. This gives you just a breakdown of the project costs, the federal request, and the local match, and that would be for all 24 vehicles. One thing that the FTA requires is, are we open to receiving less than the full amount, which of course we are, and that would adjust those numbers. We wanted to show you, no matter how, depending upon how you look at it, best case or worst case scenario with regards to the local match request. Staff recommends that City Council adopt the resolution and authorize the necessary signatures. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. Thank you for the great presentation. Just curious, how often does an application come around like this? So if we aren't fortunate, I'm very confident that we're going to get it, but if we're not fortunate to be selected, is this an annual application that's available, or how do they do this?
It has been coming out every year for about the last 5 years. There's no guarantee that it will continue, but as we've all seen, this is something that the federal government takes very seriously. So the belief is that this will continue on year after year after year after year.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Oh, Councilmember Cirillo.
Thank you, Mayor. As a former member of the Transit Advisory Board, I just wanted to congratulate you and wish you luck in getting this grant, and hopefully we will. I did have one question about possible revenue generation of the old buses. Is there any way to get, are they just going to be scrapped, or is there any way to get some sort of revenue back from the old buses if we do get this?
The buses are not scrapped. All of the equipment buses that we have, there's useful life schedules. After they reach the end of the useful life, if funding is secured in order to replace those buses, then they're auctioned off. All of that money goes back into the pool, and we can use that for additional purchases, or in this case, we could also use the same money, and that again reduces our local match and reduces the entire request. So we do turn over those. We maintain our vehicles very well. We're very fortunate, and those would have value to other agencies that would need that, which is important in our community.
Thank you.
Good luck to you as well, Jared.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. Mike, first, just thank you for everything that you're doing with transit. Really appreciate all the work that you and your team have been doing. So one technical question. So our current buses will get 8 miles per gallon, I think I saw, and they make about 300 trips a day. So with the new electric bus, would they be able to make those 300 trips a day on one charge?
The range on the optimal EVs, which was one of the reasons that the federal government backed this manufacturer, was that each bus with a full charge has a range of 125 miles. And that 125 miles is not from 0 to completely empty, it's from 100% to completely empty, it's from 100% down to 20%. So that you always have that 20% reserve to get back, to make changes, to make adjustments, the things that you need to do. So our highest average bus per day is about 115 miles. So we're well within that range. And then the ability to be able to move them through the system. And what's nice about this infrastructure is the bus actually charges in 2 hours. So where our other buses charge in 8, these buses would charge in 2. So we would not need as much infrastructure in order to accomplish the same amount of charging of those buses. So our maintenance staff on second shift could very easily move from bus to bus to bus to bus. So our anticipation is that we would, at least at the most, need about 12 chargers as compared to 1 charger per bus under a typical. And as we get into more evaluation with Evergy on this, we may be able to reduce that cost as well. But the 125 mile an hour range fits very, very well with our operation.
Awesome. You answered my next question, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Bubag.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you very much for putting this program together, or putting our submission together. Just curious, since this is being paid for by federal funds, will these be wrapped in injury, accident, attorney, advertising like we are with our other buses?
No, sir. The paratransit buses do not fall underneath the advertising code that our other fixed route buses fall underneath. So no, sir. If you find anything on there, it would be applicable to the users of those buses, medical services and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion from the bench? Thank you, Director Tan. We'll go out to the public. Is there any discussion or input on this item? If there's not, we'll bring discussion back to the bench. Seeing none, with that, I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to adopt the resolutions and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Vote of 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
2021 Bridge Rehabilitation and Repair.
Sir, welcome back.
Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. The item before you this morning is a request for funding for 2021 bridge rehabilitation and repair. The adopted capital improvement program includes an ongoing project to maintain and make improvements to existing bridges to ensure public safety. These improvements would typically be for repairs or rehabilitation as needed to ensure bridge infrastructure is safe for the general public. Some examples include repairs of damaged railing or crash barrier, replacement or upgrading of pedestrian handrails, making repairs to the concrete in different areas of the bridge itself, or working on expansion joints, items associated with bridge substructure, or in particular with box culvert bridges. This is above and beyond what our maintenance division does on a regular basis. And typically these are repairs that are identified during our biennial bridge inspections of our 285 bridges. We have several projects identified so far for use of the funding, assuming your approval today. Removal of the 10th Street Bridge and securing the 15th Street Bridge walkways at the Wichita Drainage Canal is included as one project. Funding would also be utilized for embankment repairs at the Eisenhower Parkway Bridge, crossing over the old railroad corridor, which is now part of the Prairie Travelers pedestrian pathway. Any remaining funds will be used for other priority rehabilitation repair sites as identified by staff. So to talk quickly about 10th and 15th Street bridges, this aerial shows looking above I-135 with the Wichita Drainage Canal, basically splitting the two highway sections. You can see McAdams Park highlighted in green. We've got a pretty long history of these two bridges, going back several city councils ago, looking at traffic on these bridges. 10th Street Bridge has been closed for some years now. City barricaded that. We probably should have got it removed prior to now, and it's time to get that done. At the time that decision was made by the city council to close that bridge, we were looking at a significant investment due to the condition of the bridge to keep it open. And at the time, there was barely 100 vehicles a day using that bridge. So with public input, pretty significant public input at that time, the decision was made, staff recommended, and the council approved to close that bridge. It's been closed since then. We do need to get that removed, make some improvements to the channel, just make the area a lot cleaner, a lot safer. 15th Street Bridge was part of that discussion too because of limited traffic and the condition of it. The 15th Street Bridge has stayed open. There was discussion at times with the District Advisory Board and the council to possibly make that a pedestrian bridge. I think we're really kind of waiting now to see what happens with the overall McAdams master plan and so many things that are happening there, and with the McAfee pool opening this summer. We are keeping that open to traffic. And so you can see on the left is the 10th Street Bridge. It's been closed again for quite a few years now. We would remove the bridge and the pavement, making that still accessible to vehicles on both sides. And then the pedestrian walkways would be removed. The picture on the right is the 15th Street Bridge. Due to the deteriorating condition, especially on the sidewalk sections, our maintenance crews have barricaded that off. It's still safe for vehicular traffic, but any pedestrians crossing now are having to use the roadway. So what we'd like to do with this funding is make some improvements to the sidewalk sections so that those are usable again for pedestrians, because we would expect it to be another 3 years now before any major improvements would be made to the bridge. That's when the funding is programmed in the CIP. Eisenhower Parkway Bridge, this looks bad because it is. It's not an imminent problem for the bridge itself, but this embankment, sometimes once you start to see erosion, it can start to go pretty quick. So basically down to the bottom left of the picture is the pedestrian pathway. This is something that we do need to get repaired before it gets any worse and obviously causes any potential problems for pedestrians. So all of this together would be part of the funding that we are requesting today. The adopted CIP includes $500,000 in 2021. For these projects, the funding source is local sales tax. Staff is requesting that all of the budget be initiated at this time. And with that, staff requests City Council approve the budget and adopt the resolution. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you. And this isn't really a question, it's just more of a comment. We've had this discussion before that we've had several organizations and community members who are always interested in active transportation, walking and biking, and sometimes they just think about, infrastructure specifically dedicated towards that. But this is another example where a sidewalk's going to be replaced or repaired, correct? Right, yeah. So just wanted to highlight to the community that we are thinking about active transportation through all projects, even if that's not the primary focus of the project. Thank you.
Discussion. Comments from the public? We'll bring discussion back to the bench. If there's no further discussion, then I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the budget, adopt the resolution, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor Johnson. Clerk will open a roll. Members cast the vote. Result of 7-0. The motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Water Conservation 2021 Rebate Program.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council, Penny Tice, Public Works and Utilities. Here this morning to talk about a proposed rebate program for 2021. We'll start by talking about what a rebate program is, and it's an opportunity for Wichita residential water customers to replace devices and appliances within their homes that will help them save water. We've had a program in place since 2013, and since that time, we estimate that we've saved more than 300 million gallons of water. This helps us as a city achieve our long-term water supply goals, and we have an internal conservation goal of 0.35% per year in water reduction, and this program is one of the ways that we can do that. For the last several years, we've dedicated $100,000 from our water operating fund to administer this program and have approved rebates for more than 13,000 items. This shows you just the popularity of the different items that have been submitted for rebate over the years. High-efficiency toilets and dishwashers and washing machines are the most popular, but we also have rain barrels, rain sensor shutoffs, smart irrigation controllers, and dual flush valve kits that customers are eligible to either add or replace to their homes and apply for the rebate. I think I failed to mention that, so if you apply for a rebate and you're approved, then that rebate is offered as a form of a credit on your water bill. So for example, if you replace a dishwasher with an eligible device, submit your application, then you would see a $100 credit on your water bill, not have to pay for a month or two. So it's a nice little incentive to help reduce our water demand. We propose that the program be administered the same way we've been doing it for a couple of years now, which is allocating $100,000 for it. The program would run until that funding is exhausted or until December 31st of this year. We've never hit December 31st. Funds are always expended prior to that. The requirements remain the same. You have to be a City of Wichita water customer. You're eligible to apply and receive up to 5 rebates per year. The application can be found at our website, which is savewichitawater.com. You can complete the application entirely online, or you can ask that a paper one be mailed to you, and that is also where you can find a list of eligible devices. Typically, when you apply for the program, you have to provide proof of purchase that the device was purchased and installed in the last 90 days. Since we're about a week outside of April 1st, we're just asking that the program be retroactive back to January 1st of this year. So the rebate program is the main component of our water conservation efforts, but we also do public outreach, social media tips to help people remember those everyday things they can do to reduce their water demand. And then our website also has more resources available. So with that, the staff recommended action is that City Council approve the 2021 Water Conservation Rebate Program, and I will stand for questions.
Questions for staff? Discussion. Discussion from the public. No one bring discussion back to the bench. Still no discussion. With that, I will make the recommendation or the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the 2021 Water Conservation Rebate Program. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk open the roll. Members cast the vote. Vote is 7-0. The motion has passed. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
School district safety improvements.
Gary Jansen, Public Works Engineering. The last item I have for you today is a request for funding for safety improvements around and near Wichita Public Schools. The City of Wichita and USD 259 share a mutual interest in providing for the general safety and welfare of students, teachers, and parents near and around schools. The City Council previously, along with the USD 259 Board of Education, both agreed to coordinate and develop specific projects for improvements. The city is responsible for overseeing design, construction, and maintenance of each project. We have staff that meets with USD 259 on a monthly basis. We've done that for some time now, and it's really been invaluable. Typically, until the pandemic, staff was meeting with USD 259 staff at different sites. The school district, I think, has 94 schools around the community. And anytime they have particular issues that might come from principals, teachers, could even be parents, it really helps to meet on site, maybe look at some of those issues and things that we can do to help partner. So I apologize. Let me go back here. Just to give you an example of some of the projects we've undertaken in the last couple of years with this funding, because it's still a relatively new program. We spent some time at East High School looking at their circulation in and out of their main parking lot onto Grove, made some improvements to the existing median, as well as signalization, signing, and pavement markings. This really helped improve the flow, made it a lot safer. There's more traffic on Grove, I think, than a lot of people think, and especially during morning and afternoon peak hours with the schools, it's really helped things out. This is a crosswalk. It's across 2nd Street, Robinson Middle School. We made improvements to the sidewalk itself, provided a new crossing that includes signage, pavement markings. This is fairly typical of the types of things that we're looking for to make it safer for students and parents, again, within the areas of schools. The adopted capital improvement program includes $100,000 in school district safety improvements for 2021. The city and USD 259 agreed to a total annual cost of up to $100,000 per calendar year, with the cost split of 50% from each party. The city will pay the upfront cost and be reimbursed for half of the same. So staff recommends initiating $100,000 at this time. I might mention, even outside this, and I think it's a testament to our good relationship with the school district, the city council previously approved funding within the CIP to make improvements at 13th Street North, adjacent to Northwest High School, and that's a project that will begin this summer. That's not part of this normal funding, but we were able to, I think, work well with them to realize that there was a bigger issue there that we could still split the funding on and move forward to make needed improvements. Staff recommends City Council approve the budget, adopt the resolution, authorize the necessary signatures, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Gary, thanks a lot for that. I know in the past, we've had like some crosswalks, like down West High School, down around 31st Street, between Pawnee and Seneca. We'd had a lot of volunteers go in there and repaint the crosswalks, and I know this had come up before as far as there wasn't any funds available to pay for that, and we had volunteers doing it. Are we working together with those groups still, or are they able to use this for paint or whatever? Or help me better understand that, what was going on there. It's been a year or two since we were doing that.
I do think that's possible. We hear, especially through our partnership with the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Board, we have that discussion almost monthly. And I think especially with through the pandemic, it was a little bit of a challenge. I think it's something that we need to get back on because we have heard recently from several groups who would like to volunteer to do that. And I do think this is a good resource, especially if we're talking about pedestrian crossings related to schools, that if there are others that are willing to provide the labor, this is a great resource, I think, to provide materials or things like that. So I appreciate you mentioning that, and I think that's something that we will try to focus on again.
Thanks, Gary.
Further discussion? Open up for public comment. Seeing none, bring it back to the bench. Any other discussion on this item? If there's no other discussion, then I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the budget and adopt the resolution and to authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
License plate reader contract approval.
Welcome, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Lieutenant Casey Slaughter with Wichita Police Department, and I'm currently assigned as the Auto Theft Section Commander along with larceny. I'm here today actually because I'm extremely excited to talk to you about our license plate reader program, kind of give you a little bit of the background on that, the project itself, and the critical role license plate readers play in our society today, and along with the cost. And we're specifically going to be talking about the flock license plate reader contract approval. Before I kind of get started, I want to at least go over a very short part of my testimony to the Senate on March 24th. Automated license plate reader solutions were developed specifically for mission-critical operations which law enforcement and homeland security agencies face. ALPRs enhance law enforcement's ability to detect violations of law, recover stolen property, apprehend fugitives, rescue victims of human trafficking and kidnapping, and assist in criminal investigations. Most crimes and activities worldwide involve vehicles. Law enforcement is also tasked with ensuring the safety of the homeland from drug trafficking and terrorist activity and more. LPR technology is capable of contributing in all these areas, but the use of such technology must be done in a way to ensure the sanctity of privacy and have minimal delays on legitimate travel and commerce. Wichita Police Department's successes have been extensive with arrests and successful prosecutions of fugitives, homicide suspects, known drug traffickers, recoveries of stolen vehicles and stolen plates, recovery of kidnapping victims, leads in violent crime investigations, and the seizure of large amounts of illegal drugs. We currently have two types of license plate reader technology in Wichita. There's stationary, which is the Flock license plate reader program that we're talking about today. And we have mobile. We've had that since 2014. We also have one stationary location with a different vendor. A little bit about the background and management of our program. In 2014, the Wichita Police Department appointed me as the license plate reader administrator. And so I've been the license plate reader administrator since then. And we adopted and wrote a policy 804, which governs our license plate reader program. I also created a training program which has been standardized, and every single recruit goes through this training, and we also have refresher trainings available for any department member who wants to go through it. We also did an entire mandatory training on license plate readers when these were first developed. We also have audits, so random and directed. I conduct random audits of the system to ensure that officers are looking up data appropriately and in accordance with policy. Those are random, and then we have directed. So what I mean by directed is if I knew that there was a red flag on a particular officer doing something illegitimately, then I would go and query the license plate reader audit system to see if they were also misusing that system. To date, I have not found any violations. Searches have to be conducted for a legitimate law enforcement purpose, and officers are trained to understand what a legitimate law enforcement purpose is. WPD is currently conducting a 90-day trial period using the Flock Group Incorporated license plate reader program. Flock LPRs are stationary, but these are modular, so meaning they can be moved as hotspots develop in one particular area, and then they resolve in another area, so we would then pick them up and potentially move them to other areas as needed. They're solar and battery powered with LTE mobile cards, which also means they actually can be wired, but again, it helps with the movement process. Flock LPRs, they use a patented vehicle fingerprint technology, and I'll kind of show you more on the next slide about that, but the main takeaway is they can look at build, make, and color of a vehicle. We recently had a catalytic converter thief who was previously unidentified driving a specific type of vehicle. We did not have the tag number, and we were able to identify that vehicle and potentially the suspect simply based on a make and color of a vehicle. And then Flock only allows for retention of data for 30 days. So what happens is it's on a rolling deletion. So on the 31st day, all the data is gone. It's destroyed. This is an example of the identifying characteristics. So on the left picture, you'd see a suspect vehicle perhaps identified by a video camera at a gas station for a particular type of crime. And in this picture, we obviously don't have a tag number or any way normally to find a tag number. So on the right picture, we might have known that it's a white four-door vehicle, perhaps a Honda. We could put all that information into the Flock license plate readers and look for that particular time frame, and then we might actually be able to come up with a tag number and identify a suspect. That would be the right picture. Our deployment is citywide. Again, they are adjustable and modular, like I mentioned. We're initially looking at 25 Flock license plate readers per bureau and then 10 for investigations. This is a 2020 Part 1 crime hotspot analysis, which is a heat map, and you can see the core of Wichita is definitely a major issue. And that's where, if you overlaid the license plate reader deployment, it would look very similar to this heat map and how we've deployed these. They are available for private purchase, so HOAs, clubs, and businesses can purchase a license plate reader if they so choose. There is a developer here in Wichita who has chosen to purchase two LPRs for neighborhoods at their request and put it at those particular entrances to the neighborhoods. What that does is a private citizen cannot access any law enforcement data. They can choose to share the data with us, but they cannot access anything that we have back to them. Some of the outcomes we've had with Flock, and again, this is actually to date. These numbers are $1.5 million in stolen vehicles recovered, 157 stolen vehicles recovered, 24 guns, $5,000 worth of tools, and $1,000 worth of lawn equipment, and a couple of catalytic converters. 163 arrests, 110 of those being felony, 47 misdemeanor, 5 runaways, and a missing person. Some of those statistics includes these types of charges: homicide, ag battery firearms, carjacking. That was the first day of the program. We caught a carjacking suspect out of Kansas City. Auto theft, of course. KDOC absconders, Kansas Department of Corrections. Theft, counterfeiting, and DV suspects. Some of the drugs that we've seized, now how this is calculated in terms of the tracking of this information is if a license plate reader alerted on a particular vehicle and it resulted in a lawful search of that vehicle, that's how we track this particular statistic here. So almost a pound of methamphetamine, 4.5 pounds of marijuana plus, and cocaine, 3 grams, and some narcotic pills. And still going. More outcomes with Flock. Reported auto thefts during the time period, so we're talking about during the 90-day time period, the trial period with Flock, we had 845 stolen vehicles in that time period. Out of those, in 2019, there were 461 recoveries. In 2020, we had 617 recoveries in that same time period. Average days before recovery. So we've had, in 2019, we had about 15 days before we would recover a car that was stolen. In 2020, that was reduced by 4 days. I would have thought that was impressive to reduce it by 12 hours, but we reduced it by 4 days. And then finally, our auto theft arrests. In 2018, 45 in this particular time period. 2019, 51. 2020, 61. So it continues to go up as the license plate reader program gets better. Oops. Good policies. So again, it's only accessible by law enforcement. There's no private citizen that can access our data. Flock allows for capture data to be collected and captured for 30 days only. We have the policy I mentioned earlier. It's gone through several revisions, and I'm also looking at the policy right now for an additional revision based on the review of 16 state laws governing license plate readers. So I'm taking some language and adopting that for our policy to, again, make it a little more bulletproof. Alerts and searches only allowed for law enforcement reasons. You can't just search anybody for any reason. It has to be a law enforcement reason, meaning you have to have a case number. And if you don't have a case number because it's a crime just occurred, you need to have a location and the type of crime so that 6 months later we can look back and say, why did you search this vehicle? Do you understand what's going on? If there was an investigation launched. Officers cannot act on LPR alerts alone. So if the license plate reader does alert, they can't just go and stop the car without confirming that through 3 different ways. Spider, which is our records folks, dispatch, or their computer on CAD to ensure that that is a legitimate license plate reader alert. And then the Houston HIDA LPR director has noted that we're the model to how to run a license plate reader program throughout the nation. Financial considerations. $275,000 annually is what we're looking at for the deployment of the license plate readers, which is $2,500 per LPR, and it's on an annual subscription basis. It's an all-in cost, so everything you see here is included: mounting hardware, maintenance, wireless service, and unlimited uses of the license. They did waive the $250 per LPR installation fee, which is roughly over $25,000 in discounts they gave us. And I'm going to leave you with this. If you'll permit me, I'll tell a couple of quick stories. On 12/11/2020, a 20-year-old man was shot to death by an unknown suspect who witnesses described fleeing the area in a light blue Buick Rendezvous. Detectives analyzed police records and came up with a series of possible license plates and vehicles. ALPR was then searched, and a light blue Buick Rendezvous was documented in the area of the homicide within 10 minutes of the crime. Detectives used this information to locate the vehicle and the suspect, who was formally charged with felony murder, robbery, and juvenile possession of a firearm. On 12/25/2020, a 911 call was received for an abduction/auto theft from 2001 South Oliver on a blue BMW with a 1-year-old child in the vehicle. Witnesses and the victim stated a white Scion was used in concert with the auto theft, and the white Scion was identified using LPR as it was seen in the area of the auto theft at the time. The blue BMW was located in the 2300 block of South Terrace, and the child was not harmed. Because of associated vehicle identification from LPR, officers were able to locate the Scion, the driver who provided the identity for the kidnapper, the auto thief, who was apprehended a short time later. On January 4th, 2021, officers used LPR to locate a VW Passat that was taken in a residential robbery of an 82-year-old female in northeast Wichita. The victim stated 3 suspects forced their way into her home, knocked her to the ground, causing injury. The suspects took her purse, her money, her cell phone, and left in her vehicle. Officers got a timely LPR alert at 13th and Hillside. The vehicle was located with 4 suspects, and they were all taken into custody. Suspects were interviewed by detectives, and 1 confessed, implicating the other 3. In all, 3 suspects were booked for robbery. They were later formally charged with ag burglary, robbery, felony theft, and battery. And this last one's a little bit longer, so I'll summarize. Just recently, our burglary section, because of one LPR alert alone, was able to get a serial burglar charged with 70 out of 74 charges, and 50 which included 50 of felony charges and 20 misdemeanor charges, spanning 30 of 33 cases from this particular serial burglar. So our recommended action is to approve the Flock contract with Flock Group Incorporated, and that'll conclude my presentation. I'll stand for questions.
Questions? Councilmember Bluebog.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And help me better understand the system. It's not only taking a picture, is it taking in the digits too? And alerting you if it's stolen, or do you have to manually do that? And you may have went through that with your presentation. I just want to kind of understand it.
So essentially it takes a picture of the back of the license of the vehicle. We don't have front plates in Kansas, so it's only going to get the back of the vehicle. And then it extrapolates the digits from the license plate that it's taking the picture of, and then tries to compare that to a known hot list of information that's going on. It's usually received through NCIC. We can also manually put in information from a crime just occurred. So if we had a homicide that would have just occurred, or a kidnapping, for instance, we can go in and I can manually put in, look for this vehicle because this is involved in a homicide, and some notes about stopping it.
Okay. From my experience with ride-alongs or communications with WPD officers, I've always heard that paper tags are an issue. A lot of times they're not real, they're just replacement. Does this help with that at all?
I'm actually really glad you asked that question, because yes, it does recognize paper tags. We've had issues with other vendors not being able to recognize those. This particular one does, because it's motion captured. It's not using optical character recognition, which is what typically LPR vendors will use to look at reflectivity of plates. This is just simply looking at motion. So as soon as the vehicle passes that particular LPR, it captures it and looks at that paper tag and or motorcycle tag. Those are difficult sometimes too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Clayco. Oh, excuse me. My apologies. We have Vice Mayor Johnson on the list.
Thanks, Mayor. I wanted to share a few things I've had concerns shared with me from folks. So I've had 2 state reps and 1 neighborhood association president concerned about Big Brother listening and abusing the abilities of the system. I know you kind of addressed that with the policy, but can you speak more to ways in which that might be prevented?
Yes, sir. So I think it really comes back to 4 different things, and it comes back to having a robust policy in place, which I do believe we have. And again, looking at that policy, revising it, and having lots of eyes on that policy, and then again, reviewing multiple state laws to ensure our policy is somewhat for today. It's for now. And then also the training, making sure that our training program is consistent with standardized training models throughout the nation, which I believe we are, and ensuring that every officer gets that training or they don't get access to this system. And that is, I'm the gatekeeper when it comes to that. So when somebody applies to get access to the system, they must go through the training first or they don't get it. And then audits, I mentioned that earlier, random and directed, making sure that we are utilizing the system for legitimate law enforcement purposes, which kind of leads me into the 4th thing. When you do conduct a search, and this is something I probably forgot to mention earlier, so I'm glad you brought this up, there is a reason box in the Flock license plate reader program where it does not allow you to search for anything without a legitimate law enforcement purpose. So you have to put in that case number, you have to put in that crime just occurred in that location, or you don't get a search result in that. So again, as part of the audit process, I can go back and look exactly at what folks are searching for, and it audits and logs every single keystroke and keeps those indefinitely.
Wow, yeah, that's good information. The other, so you actually corrected me because I told the citizen wrong who asked this, but there were concerns about private use, and I did see on the green sheet, and you mentioned that there is at least 1 person privately who has purchased 2 of these.
Yes, sir.
So I am corrected on that, but there was a concern about a private citizen or developer who would have these and maybe try to abuse that themselves. I don't think we probably can govern that, but because the example was just folks being themselves, if someone had a can of beer and they were outside walking around and maybe shouldn't be, could a picture be taken of that person, shared with WPD, and that individual be ticketed or arrested?
To date, to answer your question, of course, I've looked at a lot of Flock pictures in my time as the LPR administrator in these last 5 months. I've not seen one picture of any one citizen taken on the LPRs. It's possible that if a car drove by and somebody happened to be standing, near the LPR, it's possible to get a photo taken. It's highly unlikely, and I've not seen a single one to date. There are other private vendors out there, just so we kind of make the distinction, who do drive around and collect privately held LPR data. So they may see tow trucks or repo type folks or banking institutions who may go out there and collect info. I'm not a fan of that because, again, there's no control over that. I don't know where that information's going and what it's being used for. In the case of Flock, they allow folks to purchase it on their own authority, and those folks do not have to share it with us if they don't want to. If most of the time they're probably going to, because that's the idea is they want to know if an auto thief drives into their neighborhood at 2 in the morning, they're probably not up to any good. So they want us to know that and head that way.
Right. And then just two more. Last night at District Advisory Board, this came up. Actually, it came up last month and last night. There was a concern about this expanding beyond stolen vehicles, and I know that you just kind of mentioned if there's a case number, but can you kind of talk about what would trigger usage of this system?
So, I mean, frankly, it only triggers the usage, or I guess the searching, again, back to a legitimate law enforcement purpose. So you're looking at two different uses for the system. One, the live version, if you will, and I say live with a caveat on there, it's not live video, but we can monitor this, and so as soon as somebody, an auto thief or say a homicide suspect were to roll through a particular area with a Flock LPR, they'd be alerted on, and we'd be able to respond as fast as we got that alert. And that goes out to our entire fleet as well, not just a couple of different officers or whatever. So they'd have to be logged into the system. And then again, back to the historical data, that's the second piece of this, being able to roll that back, again, only for 30 days. So we have to be kind of quick on the draw to be able to get back and look at, if 28 days ago we had a homicide case that has occurred that might have gone a little bit cold, but now we have a new tip or a new lead, we might be able to put that vehicle in that area and corroborate some information. Looking back at human trafficking, and again, my experience in exploited and missing children's unit, it's extremely helpful from the point of view that a lot of times those victims don't disclose for long periods of time, and sometimes that can go on for years, and we would lose that, of course, with this, since their policy is not longer than 30 days. But being able to take that, if we had a human trafficker or we had somebody committing multiple sex crimes, and we could take a victim's story and corroborate it by putting that suspect in that same area, we'd probably solve a lot of crimes doing that, especially with EMCU involved.
Yeah. And then the last one, just to clarify, I told these citizens that the system cannot record conversations and all of that. Is that accurate, or can it actually record full?
That's correct. It does not record conversations. In addition to that, there is no personal identifying information transmitted through this. You're simply getting a picture of the back of a vehicle and the tag number, and of course some identifying marks on the vehicle if that's there. But it's not, we cannot say Bob Smith, the homicide suspect, with this date of birth and this social security number. We can't do that. That's against policy, and it's not allowed through our system. So only we can put in things like registered owner of this vehicle is potentially involved in a robbery, stop and detain, authority so-and-so. We can put a case number.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all your thorough, detailed answers. That's going to help out quite a bit.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Clayco.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you,
Good presentation. I just had a question. Can you go back to the slide that shows the number of stolen vehicles? Yeah, yes, this one right here.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to verify. Then you gave us some numbers for recoveries for 2019 and 2020. Could you give me those numbers again, please?
Sure. So this is outcomes for stolen vehicles in the city of Wichita, and then I've got additional statistics that I brought with me. In 2019, we had 461 recovered. In 2020, and again, this is during this time period, not the entire year, just this time period that we've been looking at Flock. So we're talking about November, December, and January of 2021. We recovered 617, so that's a 150 plus vehicle increase.
So that's not for the entire year, you're saying, it's just a period of time?
Yes.
Oh, well, and so 2020, it wouldn't, just the 90 days?
Yes.
Just the 90
during
days?
The trial, yes.
Okay, so it would be even more. So the number that's in our agenda report says 152 stolen vehicles recovered, which I think you had updated
Yes.
for even today. What's that difference between the 152 or 157 and this 461 and 617? What are those different?
So this is a to-date number. This is including all the way up to present day. So I included all the statistics because I wanted to give the best information I possibly could to the council to make the best decision.
But what's the difference between the 157 stolen vehicles recovered and the 461 and the 617? Those are two different classifications, and somehow I'm not making that connection.
So this is, again, auto theft recoveries for 2019 during that particular time period. And so I see what your question is now. The 617 are other stolen vehicles that we've recovered in all the other ways. This is simply just flock that I was giving you on the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
That is confusing.
Councilmember Tuttle.
Thank you, Lieutenant. This was very helpful. I just want to clarify a couple things, and I learned a great deal, so thank you for making this easy to understand and digestible. But when individuals or private, and Vice Mayor kind of brought it up too, individuals or private entities can purchase this and then supply the information to the Wichita Police Department, would that be comparable to like the Ring doorbells that people can submit their information to, but they can't get it back, correct?
Very similar. And
Okay.
actually, there's another project out there called Project Blue Light, which maybe you're familiar with,
I'm not.
where neighborhood associations can elect to buy a private video camera if they want to put that in their neighborhood association or area. And that camera can transmit, if they so choose, that information to the Wichita Police Department so that we can monitor it every once in a while from a live view. We don't have people that are paid to monitor it all the time, but we do have some volunteers, and then we can also look at historically what that information would give us if the neighborhood association so chose to do that. That's called Project Blue Light.
Okay, one more question, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So this was a one-year pilot project,
It
correct?
is.
And we saw some really great successes, the 157 vehicles and all the other assets, and especially guns being seized. So if we approve this, then we'd have a second year of a pilot project, correct? Do we have any anticipated goals, or what are we looking for in terms of numbers, or so that we could say, yes, we've had 2 years of a pilot project and now we need to be able to implement, to institutionalize this into the Wichita Police Department? Is there some thought for that? Are there goals or targets?
Yes, so two parts to that. It's actually, just to clarify, it's a 90-day pilot. It's been kind of extended simply for the amount of time it's taken just to get with you here and talk to you post-trial. So we're at about 150 days on overtime. But yes, so the goal would be to continue this project throughout the year. And this is going to fund itself for just one additional year from April 1st on to the following April, or I guess March 31st would be the end of the contract. We would continue to track all these same exact statistics throughout we have an internal tracking log that does this, and every officer has access to it. They go in, they write down their statistics, and then I personally put them into an Excel spreadsheet and track all this information, and we would continue to do that for this year-long venture, and hopefully come back to you with, again, amazing stories and information and statistics to continue on.
And I guess, and I'm not looking for specific numbers, but I'm sure there's some sort of goal or target that we would say, okay, we've seen blank number of, successes, and that's the point that we think it's worth then trying to institutionalize it.
Yes, and I'd have to probably come up with those metrics. And now that I'm the auto theft commander, I've only been here like a week and a half to 2 weeks, I think. But now that I'm here, I will certainly work on that and come up with some metrics.
And only if, I was just curious, and I see that Bob wants to make a comment. So thank you very much. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Councilmember, what we'll do is we'll probably use the 90-day trial as our base to determine measures of success then for the 1 year additional pilot period.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Sorella.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Lieutenant Slaughter for your presentation. You did a great job today. We learned a lot. And also, I wanted to thank Flock for allowing us to continue to use their service while we get this approved. Do you know of any funding mechanisms that HOAs and neighborhood associations might be able to use? They generally don't have $2,500 in their bank. So do you know of any funding mechanisms that they might be able to go after to be able to purchase one of these for their neighborhood?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'd certainly be happy to look into it and see if we can find or identify something for HOAs, because you're right, a lot of folks don't have that kind of money to be able to purchase one or have the luxury of a developer giving them that opportunity. So it's something I'd be happy to look into and get you a better answer.
And lastly, just a comment, I'd like to see, I think my DAB members would be very interested in hearing about this, and I would love to invite you to my District 3 Advisory Board to present on this program.
I would be more than happy to, and I'd be more than happy to go to any district advisory. I've been to a few, and we've had discussions about it. And again, any council person or DAB, I would be more than happy to come and talk about Flock.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The comments. Just for the record, Sergeant Slaughter is a sergeant, not a lieutenant. Just to wrap this up, because I think I've heard some of the same concerns that Vice Mayor has heard. To access this database, you have to be a police officer. You are tracking everyone who's accessing it, and the only way to get into it is to actually have a legitimate reason. Is that a fair takeaway from today's discussion?
Yes, sir. You have to have security, again, ID and password that's authorized by me and or the organization. And to be able to use the data, you have to be able to have a specific reason that you're typing in, which is typically going to come in the form of a case number, so that we can look back and see exactly why you access that data and for what reason.
And the program's designed to really take pictures of cars passing, not of individuals. It's really not designed for that.
No, it's completely designed for the photos of the back of vehicles. They've got kind of an AI learning system that you can designate whether it's accurate or inaccurate based on what you're seeing in those photos. So if it took an incorrect picture of a tag, or it designated a plate as a Ford when it should have been a Chevy, you can make those distinctions and tell it to learn better. And like I said before, I've not seen a single individual to date yet captured in the license plate reader picture on top of the car.
And the information is erased within 30 days unless it's used in a case. And just to clarify, for any doubt, all that information is encrypted. It's stored. It really isn't accessible. It's as safe as the rest of the information that you guys hold in your database. Is that correct?
Yes, Flock has an encryption policy. I've not been aware of any data breaches on either side of either vendor that we have at any point. And certainly if I did, I would report back on that. Was there another question you had earlier? I kind of forgot what you asked there, the first one.
We kind of led with a statement from previous statement, but yes,
Yes,
it is safe. And also, my statement was the data is erased after 30 days unless it's utilized.
Yeah, so again, on that, it's a rolling deletion, so on that 31st day, it's gone. And that was going to be my point, was you can download a PDF file from this and or an Excel spreadsheet to maintain that information for discovery purposes if it's an ongoing criminal investigation. So only for that purpose, and that's it. And again, that's that specific record.
Further questions or discussion? Thank you, Sergeant. Is there discussion from public? See none. If there is no further discussion, then I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the contract, authorize authorize any necessary budget adjustments, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open roll. Members cast the vote. Result is 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Project Hope, CBCR Grant Coordination Contract.
Welcome back, Director Stang.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, members of council. The first item that I have for you today is a contract for grant coordination for our community-based crime reduction grant. So on June 11th, 2020, the Housing and Community Services Department, along with WPD and Newman University, submitted a competitive grant application for $1 million for Project Hope. In late November 2020, it was announced that our project was selected for funding, and we accepted the grant on December 2nd, 2020. Project Hope is a community-based, data-driven initiative to identify crime hotspots in the target area we've selected, bounded by Murdoch to the north, Kellogg to the south, Waco to the west, and Washington to the east. That area was selected after review with the Wichita Police Department of high crime areas in the city. Under the grant application, it was suggested to pick a target area between 1 square mile and 2 square miles. And our target area actually is about 1.5 square miles. The grant application included comprehensive data analysis conducted by WPD in Newman and outreach to residents, businesses, service providers, homeless individuals that are within our target area. And it provides funding for the grant coordination services, caseworkers to assist those experiencing homelessness and having other needs in the target area, data analysis, community events, the Civic Engagement Academy, and further outreach. The grant requires a 6 to 12 month planning phase. So as much as we designed in our application what we thought we would want to do, we do have 6 to 12 months to do outreach to the community to fully devise our implementation plan. We have $150,000 available to us of the grant funds during that 6 to 12 month planning phase. Following that 6 to 12 month planning phase, we have a 24 to 30 month implementation phase. And of course, it is our hope to reduce crime rates in our target area, and the remaining, that's a typo, $850,000 of the grant are available during implementation. So, back in June when we submitted this application, we had no idea how long COVID was going to last, what other programs and funding was going to come through related to CARES funds and American Rescue Plan funds. And at this point, neither the Housing and Community Services Department nor Wichita Police Department have the capacity to complete the grant coordination activities that are required for this project. So we worked with purchasing department and issued a request for proposals to seeking those grant coordination services for a 1-year term, renewable for an additional 2 years at the discretion of the city. And the proposal by Community Connections Consulting Services, C3S, in the amount of $80,000 meets the needs of the project. The Department of Justice CBCR funds specifically have funds designated for this purpose, for grant coordination services. It was at our discretion as to whether or not we would fund an internal position or contract. There is no impact to the general funds. The contract with C3S has been reviewed and approved to as formed by the law department. And it is recommended that the council approve the grant coordination contract with Community Connections Consulting Services and authorize the necessary signatures. And Angela Johnson from C3S is also here, and we stand for any questions that you may have.
All right, questions for Director Stang? See none, more questions for the public? See none, bring discussion back to the bench. Is there any discussion on this item? Councilmember Clayco.
Thank you. Thank you, Sally. I just want to say that I was happy to support this grant along with Vice Mayor Johnson. This grant application, I'm really excited to see the future results of it. This is a really innovative partnership between Housing and Community Services and the Police Department in our community. So thank you for your work on this, and thank you, Angeline, for joining us with grant coordination.
Any further discussion? No further discussion. I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to approve the grant coordination contract with Community Connections Consulting Services, LLC, and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Vote of 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Temporary Employees Professional Services Contract Amendment.
Good morning again. The next item that I have for you is a contract amendment with Cindio, our Temporary Employees Professional Services Agency. So just last month, the council approved the temporary employee service contract with Cindio. This came before you, through the Human Resources Department. for a contract not to exceed $600,000 annually. The time that was put together, we did not know that we had the emergency rent assistance program coming down the pike, and that we were going to need significantly more temporary service personnel in order for us to launch that program. So we've been able to use the existing contract to bring on the 6 temporary employees we have now, but now we know we need to bring on even more. So that emergency rent assistance program provided just over $12 million in emergency rent assistance. And we've encumbered the majority of the existing temporary services contract already. So the use of the temporary employees allows us flexibility and scalability to respond to the demand. We know right now there's tremendous demand for the emergency rent assistance. The Department of Treasury has actually extended the expenditure deadline from December 31st of this year to September 30th, 2020. So we do know this program is going to continue for a period of time, but that the number of employees that we're going to need for the program may expand and contract. In addition, we use temporary teachers and have a need for caseworkers for the Way to Work youth employment, summer employment program. So we can utilize this in order to do that. Additional funding is expected from the American Rescue Plan Act for further emergency rent assistance. From what we're seeing now, that additional funding that will come from the ARP will be available for expenditure through September 30th, 2025. So I jokingly say our temporary program is now has a little bit of permanency to it. So. The Housing and Community Services Department is seeking to add an additional $700,000 in capacity to the Syndio contract, funded from the WERAP administration and other federal grants, increasing the contract to $1,300,000. We left a little bit of wiggle room there because we do see other opportunities coming from the American Rescue Plan, which may require us to bring in additional staff. One of the advantages that I saw to administering the emergency rent assistance locally was that it was going to allow us to put some people to work. The additional grants provide for 10 to 20% of administrative funds that are more than sufficient to cover the increased expense for increased temporary personnel. There's no impact to the general fund. The contract amendment has been reviewed and approved as to form by the law department. And it's recommended that the council approve the amendment to the temporary employment professional services contract with Syndio and authorize the necessary signatures. And I stand for any questions you may have.
All right, questions for staff? Input from the public? None? Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I am supportive of this because of the need, but I have had a conversation with the SEIU, and they want to encourage us to always look at city employees rather than temporary employees. And I told them I would say that if we ever had the opportunity, but I know that we have a real need right now to get that ramped up, and we're getting a lot of emails about it, so I'm supportive today.
And since we have the extension of the project, we are actually looking at how many permanent employees we need for the next couple of years to oversee those existing temps as they come and go. So we're evaluating that at this time.
Awesome.
Further discussion? See none, if there's no further discussion, I will make the motion to take staff's recommended action to approve the vendor selection and contract and authorize the necessary signatures. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the votes. So to 7 yeses to 0 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
CUP 2021-2, City CUP to create the new Kellogg Drive, Heather CUP DP-356, with base zoning of LC Limited Commercial, generally located east of South Rock Road and on the north side of East Kellogg Drive, 8030 and 8244 East Kellogg Drive.
Welcome.
Good morning. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department, and I think that item's title is probably the winner of the longest one of the day. So thank you very much for the opportunity. For this item, the applicants are applying to create a custom community unit plan zoning at this site shown on the slide. The item is being presented to you today because there's a difference between the DAB recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation. About the request, the proposed community unit plan would create 2 zoning parcels, one where the existing restaurant building is located and another on the eastern half with the title loan establishment. The proposed community unit plan would impose building height maximums, building coverage maximums, and floor area ratios that are more restrictive than the current zoning of the properties. The proposed community unit plan would also reduce some setbacks, as detailed in the staff report, in order to help accommodate development of this narrow property. The community unit plan would also allow one 60-foot pole sign and one 14-foot monument sign per parcel. So for a total of 4 signs on the subject site and a total of 600 square feet of sign area for the entire CUP. This is different than the sign code, which will allow for a maximum height of 35 feet with a maximum square footage of 480 square feet of signage, being divided among the various parcels based on street frontage. A 6-foot fence is present along the north of the subject site. The CUP would require a 6-foot screening wall at that location to be constructed at the time of new construction and prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Now about the surrounding zoning and uses. Properties to the north are zoned SF5, single family, and are developed with single family homes. Property to the east is zoned LC, limited commercial, and in use as a hotel. Properties to the south and west are right-of-way for roadways. So in terms of recommendations and actions, on March 4th of this year, the planning hearing for this zone change request was held at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission voted 10-3 to recommend approval of the request, subject to staff recommendations, with the following additional condition: that the CUP text be amended to state and to clarify that the wall requirement for individual parcels will be triggered upon the building permit application for new construction and/or remodel that is 50% of the value or 30% of the square footage of the structure. On March 8th of this year, the District Advisory Board 2 reviewed the application and recommended approval 9-1. The same as the MAPC recommendation, but with the following additional condition: that signage for each parcel shall conform to the city's sign code. In terms of protests, no protests were received for this case. They can be approved by a simple majority vote. So the council has the following options for actions. The recommended action is to adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested rezoning as recommended by the MAPC with a vote of 4 of 7 votes. You also have the option of adopting the findings of the MAPC and approving the request as recommended by the DAB, which would take 4 of 7 votes. And you have the option to deny the zone change. Now, there was a typo in the staff report. In order to deny it, you would have to override the MAPC recommendation. This would require 5 of 7 votes, not 4 of 7 as indicated in the staff report. And you always have the option to return the case to the MAPC with a simple majority of 4 of 7 votes. With that, I've got some photos to take you through, and then I'll stand for questions. So here's the map of the zoning of the area. Here's a map showing where it is relative to the recommendations for the future growth concept map and comprehensive plan. Here is the CUP drawing showing it split up into 2 zoning parcels. Here are photos of the site. A little bit of the context. Looking south from the site, looking to the west. There we are. I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for staff? Well done. There's no questions or discussion. I will make the Councilmember Tuttle. Oh, excuse me, it is District 2. Thank you. That's my note here. Councilmember Tuttle, you're the floor.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make a comment for the record, a couple comments. Thank you very much to MAPD. Had some questions and you all were very responsive and helped to kind of navigate through this. I have not received any community feedback or input. I know you mentioned there weren't any petitions, but no one from the community has reached out to me regarding this. I know there was some recommendations made by the District Advisory Board, but I am going to move that the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested community unit plan subject to the conditions of the MAPC and authorize the necessary signatures. Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made and then seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, the motion does pass. And I do want to just remind the council that if there is something that, particularly after a day like today where we have a lot of items, that it is in your district, please, if it looks like I am mistaken by not recognizing you for the motion, please put your name on the board so I can ensure I never would do that on purpose. So thank you. Madam Clerk.
DER 2020-2, Community Investment Plan Amendment 2035, Urban Growth Areas Map and Unified Zoning Code, Urban Areas of Influence.
Welcome back.
Good morning again. So this item, DER 2020-2, consists of updates to both the comprehensive plan and the unified zoning code. These are updates that are primarily impact Sedgwick County, and they're being presented for your consideration because both documents are joint city and county documents, and in order to be official updates, they should be approved by both governing bodies. So here's the slide that shows the covers of the two documents, again, the comprehensive plan, unified zoning code. Again, they are joint city and county documents. And what we're talking about today is really updating two maps, one map from each of these documents. So the updates would make changes to the urban areas of influence map located in the zoning code, which you can see with the red lines on the right, and also the 2035 urban growth areas map in the comprehensive plan, which is one that shows the colors on the left. Here's a brief description of what each element does. Please note that the intent is for them to reflect each other so that the areas would be the same for these smaller cities. The urban areas of influence is found in the zoning code. These are areas provided by the county commission to small cities. They provide a formal opportunity for the small cities to review and give comments on development activity within the areas surrounding their cities. So in many ways, it gives them formal opportunity to comment, much like the DABs do for the city council. The 2035 urban growth areas map, which is located in the comp plan, illustrates the anticipated growth patterns of Sedgwick County cities. This map is a guide, it is not binding, and it is based on anticipated future expansion of municipal services and where the corporate limits of these cities could be by the year 2035. This map is not prescriptive, and it is a guide only, and I want to emphasize that there is a possibility that communities could annex, other cities could annex into these areas, so it does not restrict annexation of other communities into these areas. So the proposed changes would update the boundaries for some of the small cities in Sedgwick County. The staff report, the attached maps, and graphics in this PowerPoint illustrate these changes. So, but before I get to that, I want to touch quickly on the city of Wichita. So for the growth areas map, the city of Wichita shows an area, growth area around it. This is derived from our sanitary sewer master plan process. And we understand that Public Works is looking at this and the possibility of an update. But for now, that is what this is based on. It's the area that Wichita is expected and could serve within the year, by the year 2035. So that is the basis for Wichita's. Now, this is map 1. So on here, you can see the cross-hatched areas, which are the areas that the smaller cities, when they were contacted by us to look into this, they are areas that they explained that they would like to see their urban growth areas extended to. Map 2 shows what was recommended, and the area of difference was between the communities of Goddard and Garden Plain. They had overlapping areas that they had requested, you can see on this map. And what happened is they were not able to come to a resolution. So rather than approve one or the other, the MAPC recommended not approving either of them. And we will revisit this area with them as we do another update. We typically do updates, I'd say, every other year or so. So And then on this slide, you can see yellow text. These are text changes that we would make to the map just to make sure that it reflects current information and is up to date. Here's the urban areas of influence. So this is the older map, and this is what's proposed. Again, the red outlines here reflect what you've seen in the urban areas of growth, urban growth areas map. So, the MAPC approved the recommended changes detailed in the staff report. On December 16th, 2020, the Board of County Commissioners adopted these changes recommended by the MAPC. And so the recommendation is that the City Council adopt the recommended action of the MAPC, adopt the comprehensive plan and zoning code amendments, and this would require a majority vote, so 4 out of 7 votes. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? There's no questions or discussion. And I will make the motion to accept staff's recommended action to adopt the recommended action of the MAPC and adopt the comprehensive plan and zoning code amendments. Second.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Clerk will open the roll. Members will cast their vote. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays. The motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
PUD 2020-14, city zone change from SF5 single-family residential to PUD planned unit development to create the Falcon Falls PUD number 82 to permit accessory apartments and 1 non-resident employee for home occupations on property generally located 1/2 mile west of North Hillside Avenue and north of East 45th Street North.
Good morning again. So this item, as indicated, is for a PUD. The applicants are applying for a rezoning, again from SF5 single family to a custom planned unit development in order to permit accessory apartments and 1 non-resident employee for home occupations. On the aerial map here, you can see the locations identified in the red outline. This item is being presented, and I have misspoke to a couple of you, this item is being presented not because of the petitions, but rather because there's a difference between the DAB recommendation and the Planning Commission recommendation. So about this request, the subject site contains 93 platted lots in the Falcon Falls 3rd Edition, generally located about 1/2 mile west of North Hillside and on the north side of 45th Street North. The proposed PUD zoning would allow for accessory apartments on the lots by right. They would need to meet the development standards and supplementary use regulations in the zoning code and listed in the staff report. In addition, the PUD zoning would allow for a home occupation with 1 non-resident employee. In terms of the surrounding uses, properties to the north are zoned SF5, single family, and are a mix of undeveloped properties and properties developed with single family homes. Properties to the east are zoned SF5 and TF3 and LC limited commercial. Some are undeveloped, some are single-family dwellings, and others are in use as duplexes. Properties to the south and within the same subdivision are zoned SF5 and developed with single-family dwellings. Property to the west is zoned SF5 and SF20 and developed with large lot, single-family residential, and agricultural land. In terms of recommendations, on February 18th of this year, the public hearing for this zone change request was held at the Planning Commission meeting. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the rezoning per staff comments with the addition of a provision that would prohibit rentals within the PUD. On February 1st, 2021, the DAB 1 voted 9-1 to recommend approval per staff comments, so without the restriction on rentals. In terms of protest, several protest petitions were submitted. These totaled 2.29% of the protest area, so that did not surpass the 20% threshold. The City Council has the following options for actions. It is recommended that you adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve the requested rezoning as recommended by the MAPC. This can be done with 4 of 7 votes. You can adopt the findings of the MAPC and approve as recommended by the DAB. This again would require 4 of 7 votes. You can deny the zone change, which would require an override of the MAPC recommendation and would require 5 of 7 votes. Or you can return the case to the MAPC with a simple majority of 4 of 7 votes. So with that, I've got some pictures, and then I'll stand for questions. So here it is relative to the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Guide. Here is a graphic showing the PUD. Here are photos from the site. So the areas of the PUD are currently undeveloped. However, there are homes in the same subdivision that have been developed. So you're seeing a mix here in the photos. And this is the protest area map. The red shows the valid protests that were submitted. Blue shows protests outside of the protest area. And this is the aerial showing the PUD. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions? Discussion. If there is none, Chair recognizes Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thanks, Mayor. I did have a question first, just to make sure, because reading through this was a little confusing. So if there was a motion to adopt the findings of MAPC, it would be their recommendation in addition to the amendment to prohibit rentals?
That is an excellent question. You have 2 routes that you can go on that. You can adopt the findings of the MAPC, and you can go with their recommendation to include the prohibition on rentals, or you can adopt the findings of the MAPC and go with the DAB recommendation, which did not include that restriction. Both would require, as I review here, would require 4 of 7 votes because there was not a protest above the 20%. So in effect, you can adopt the findings of the MAPC, and then you have 2 options in terms of essentially what flavor you'd like to go with, what outcome.
Okay. So just because of the date difference, the DAB was not able to hear from the residents that MAPC heard from. That conversation at DAB was about prohibiting rentals because we did have a few residents reach out, but not the details that are in the MAPC minutes. So I would move that the City Council adopt the findings of the MAPC with the prohibition on rentals and approve the requested zone change, place the ordinance on first reading, authorize the necessary signatures, and instruct the city clerk to publish the ordinance after approval on second reading.
Motion has been made. I will second it. We have someone on the board to speak to the motion at this point. Councilmember Bluebach.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, can you let me know, how does that work if you restrict rentals? Are you not infringing on the property rights, or is there a deed restriction? And I guess what's the remedy if somebody would rent it? I'm just curious the process there.
Yes, Councilmember, I'm Jennifer Magana. I'll defer to zoning staff, but I believe that's a provision that's available through zoning code, just as a matter of the ability to restrict certain types of development. Scott, I'll throw it back to you if you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of discussion that came up with this at the MAPC. And although it is legal, one thing that I would emphasize is that it can be very difficult to enforce because it would be difficult to tell who's a renter and which ones are owner occupied. So there is that difficulty there. I'm going to look to JR and see if there's anything else that we should add.
Well, I mean, what's the remedy? What do they do if somebody rents it? Are they going to seize the property?
Council, J.R. Cox, Metropolitan Planning. For the record, the remedy would be, as with any other violation, if it's a condition of the PUD, planned unit development, and a person violates that, it would be a violation of law. We would have to investigate, gather the evidence, charge the person, and have them found guilty in court. The hardest part, of course, is going to be the investigation and gathering the proper evidence to show this, but that's what we'd be required to do if it's a condition of the PUD.
Okay. Are you an attorney as well?
No, sir, I'm not.
Okay. Can he give legal advice, or?
I don't. Yeah, I think what he's saying is that it can be investigated and it would be prosecuted, I assume, through environmental court, through our zoning code, just like any other code violation that we currently prosecute.
Okay, thanks.
Clerk will open the roll, members cast the vote. Result of 5 yeas to 2 nays, the motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Public hearing and request for a letter of intent to issue Airport Special Facility Revenue Bonds, Garver LLC.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Tim Goodpasture with the City's Office of Economic Development. For the record, the item before you today is a request for a letter of intent to issue Airport Special Facility Revenue Bonds for Garver. Garver is an employee-owned multidisciplinary engineering firm that is involved in engineering, planning, architectural services, and environmental services. It was founded in 1919. The company offers services for aviation, construction, facilities design, federal projects, surveying, transportation, and water and wastewater facilities. The company is currently located at 8535 East 21st Street North near 21st and Rock Road, and will be relocating to a 17,000 square foot facility at Dwight D. Eisenhower National Airport. The facility they will be leasing is located at 1995 Midfield Road. On this aerial, you can see Harry Street running across the top of the aerial, with Tyler running across the left side of the aerial and Hoover Road on the right side. The area outlined in red is 1995 Midfield Road, which is basically right in the middle of the airport facility. The company is requesting a letter of intent to issue Airport Special Facility Revenue Bonds in an amount not to exceed $1.2 million, which will be utilized to renovate the office space to bring it up to a modern standard. These are some photos of what the facility looks like today. On the left there, you can see a reception area. In the middle, you can see a conference room, and on the right, you can see some office space. You can see in that photo on the right some rather dark stains on the carpet, and you can see that it is a rather dated facility. Garver currently employs 31 individuals in Wichita today and projects that it will add 29 new employees over the next 5 years. So essentially, it will be doubling in size with annual average wages of $75,000 a year. The bonds will be used for a sales tax exemption only due to the fact that the property is already on the Airport Authority ground. It is already exempt from property tax in perpetuity, so no property tax has been requested. Therefore, it is staff's recommendation that the Wichita Airport Authority close the public hearing, adopt the resolution of intent, and authorize the necessary signatures. Chris Bohm of Garver is here and can answer any questions specific to the company, and I would be happy to stand for any questions as well.
Questions for staff? Discussion from the bench? Any input from the public? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Chris Bohm. I'm the local representative for Garver. With me today is Michael Graves, our Chief Operations Officer from Garver LLC. Our address right now is 8535 East 21st Street North, and not too long it'll be 1995 Midfield Road, and we're very happy about that. And we've grown locally from a staff of 14, 3.5 years ago to 20 or 31 today. So we're looking to add 30, 29 or 30 more over the next few years. And you know, that growth is really founded in large measure by you, the City of Wichita. You've trusted us with the general aviation ramp design and construction phase services at Eisenhower National. We serve as your owner's representative for the new Northwest Water Treatment Facility under construction right now. We're the owner's rep for the study phase of the BNR improvements at Plant 2 for your wastewater reclamation in South Wichita. And we work with KDOT on a more regional basis as a representative on their behalf for the IKE transportation program. We work with the KTA, we work with McConnell Air Force Base So we're really happy to be involved at a local level. And if we found success at a local level, it's due to the reflected leadership from Garver and Michael and his management team, and they're out in front of the growth of our company regionally. And with that, I'll have Michael come up and speak just briefly to that point.
Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate those kind words. Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. As Chris mentioned, my name is Michael Graves. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Garver, and I'm really glad to be here today. We're really excited about this opportunity. As Tim mentioned, Garver's been around for a little while. We've been doing engineering consulting business for 102 years. We currently have 35 offices across the United States. Back in 2017, our board decided that Wichita, Kansas was a place that we wanted to be. And so we invested in a new office in Wichita, Kansas, and that has been a great investment. We have certainly grown, as Chris mentioned and Tim mentioned, and plan to continue that growth. This new office at the Eisenhower National Airport location provides us that opportunity to continue that growth and further investment in the city of Wichita. As you're aware, I think you're aware, there's a large capital investment component associated with this relocation of our office. We're very, very glad to do that. But there's more investment associated with our presence in Wichita than just what you have before you today. You know, we continue to want to invest in our workforce through providing them quality education opportunities through what we call Garver University, which is our internal professional development program. We also will continue to invest in this community through Garver Gives, which is our internal corporate giving program. Two programs that I'm really proud of. And so thank you again for the opportunity to say a few words. Thank you again for welcoming us to your community back in 2017. We would like to put down some deeper roots today, and I appreciate your consideration of this item.
Thank you, gentlemen. Discussion on the item. There is no further discussion. I will relinquish the floor to Councilmember Blubog of District 4 for a motion.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you guys very much for growing your company here in Wichita. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out till the very end of the meeting today. So I'd like to take the recommended action to close the public hearing, adopt the resolution of intent, and authorize the necessary signatures.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. Clerk will open the roll. Members cast the vote. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays. That motion does pass. Madam Clerk.
Council member appointments and comments.
All right, let's try to start off with appointments, if folks don't mind. So if you have appointments, now's the time. Councilmember Cirillo.
Okay, I have a long list here. Bear with me. Thank you, Mayor. I will be making reappointments to my district advisory board. These are reappointments: Catherine Johnson, Daisy Olivar, Mike Loop, Ron Tracy, Rich Ruth, David Capon, and Gerald Henry. I will making new appointments to my district advisory board of Emily Fogg, Jessica Lucas, and Joseph Shepard. For my diversity and inclusion choice, I will be appointing Marquita Atkins. For the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board, I will be reappointing Ron Tracy. For the Board of Park Commissioners, I will first off wanted to thank Hoyt Hillman for his 8 long years of service to the Board of Park Commissioners. He is terming out, so I will be appointing Philip J. Simon to the Board of Park Commissioners. That's all I have.
Wonderful. Vice Mayor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Read through all the applications for diversity, inclusion, and civil rights, and kind of 2 people rose to the top for me. But for this year's appointment, I will be appointing Kelly Grant to that board.
Further appointments? I have a couple. For the Municipal Court Judge Nominating Commission, I would like to appoint the following individuals to the nominating commission. Dr. Sherry Utash, Dr. Amy Braggs Carey, and from the Wichita Bar Association, C. Edward Watson II, Michelle Mo Whitty, sorry if I mispronounce the name, I also sometimes have my name mispronounced in the same way, and David Perel Enron. Are there any other appointments? Well, Councilmember Sorello hasn't made a motion yet, so why don't you make a motion? Why don't we give you the floor and you can make a motion to accept the appointments?
Well, thank you, Mayor. I would make a motion to accept all of the appointments provided today.
And I will second that motion. Clerk will open roll, members will cast their votes. Result of 7 yeas to 0 nays. All the appointments are approved. Back on announcements. All right, if there's no announcements, then I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by the Vice Mayor. And clerk will open roll, members cast their votes. The yay vote gets us out of here. With a result of 7 yeas to 0 nays, that motion does pass. We are adjourned. Thank you all.